Welcome to the Spring Lane webinar. I apologise for the delay. We're trying to get David onto the call. He's having a few issues with technology. He will try and join, but we're going to go ahead anyway because I appreciate we're sort of 6 minutes into the call or into the webinar already. I'm just going to share my slides. The first question is, can participants please just give me a thumbs up or something just to make sure that you can hear me okay? Just raise your hand. Great, I can see a couple coming through. Thank you so much for that. What we'll do is we'll start with the presentation itself. We'll run through some basics and then James, I'll introduce James in a very short while. And we'll start just running through the actual project. We will address any questions that you have. You've got the chat function at the top. So if you do have specific questions as we go through it, please add them there. We will be looking at it. And then we'll also potentially do a Q&A towards the end. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so today we're talking about the Spring Lane project. I will ask James to introduce himself. James, do you want to do that now, actually? Would that be better?
Yeah, sure, not a problem. So, hi everyone, thanks for attending the webinar. So I'm James Cross of Crossover Property. We're a SME developer based in the East Midlands, specifically in Nottingham. And this is our latest project for 5 new build bungalows.
Thank you. And we're still expecting David to join the call as well, David from Leo. And I'm hosting today's webinar. I'm Nottinghamshire from Simple Crowdfunding, and we'll talk about that in a second. Before we get started into the project itself, there's just a couple of things that I'd like to draw your attention to. The first is we're not providing investment advice. This webinar is so that you can understand a little bit more about the project itself. If you go onto the Simple Crowdfunding platform and you are interested in downloading the full investment memorandum and investing in this project, then you will be asked to sort of run through risk statements and so forth. And also with regards to this webinar itself, some of the information that's shared is not necessarily the opinions of Simple Crowdfunding specifically. It's also James and hopefully David providing an overview in terms of their thoughts about this project. Okay, so there's going to be a few things that we're going to cover off today. The first is James is going to share a little bit more about himself and his company. The second is we'll run through the project itself. We'll talk about the project location. We'll run through a financial summary, the actual offer that's on the platform, and next steps and what you can do about it. As we said before, you do have the option to ask questions, and there will be a short Q&A at the end of the webinar as well. So James, I'm just going to hand you over to start talking about yourself and also about the project, if that's okay.
Absolutely. So we started. I started Crossover Property back in 2018. We actually initially started sourcing and doing project management projects. So we did buy-to-lets, HMOs, flips, and we've kind of worked our way up into developments, which is, I think the kind of right way. So we've completed over 50 projects now in total. £15 million GDV projects completed, and they're only getting slightly sort of bigger and better, and basically utilising all the learnings that we've had in that sort of past 5 years experience. Just put a couple of snapshots of a couple of projects we finished last year. On the left is Douglas Road. This is a single new build 5-bed detached house. It was a back garden infill plot that we identified, took through planning, and then built out and sold. So it's quite a considerable size of property for the area, but we got it reserved on first floor level of the properties. We're really pleased with having an exit from before we'd even finished it. So that went really well, finished on time, quality was really good. Being honest, we did go over budget. That was due to materials going through the roof literally last year, but overall a good scheme. And then something we completed early this year was an ex-care home to a 20-bed supported living HMO. This was now on a lease, a 5-year lease to the provider with a GDV of 1.275 million. We've got a couple of other projects on at the minute, but yeah, this is just a snapshot of two we've worked with recently.
Thank you very much. And then if we sort of move into the project itself, do you want to talk a little bit about this specific project?
Yeah, absolutely. So the project itself is actually an old kennels and cattery that the owners basically, they have a house on site and they've got a kennels and cattery business.
You can't mute yourself.
Sorry, carry on.
I think it's my. I've just seen some of the messages. Apparently, people can't hear me very well. Can you guys hear me okay now, or is it?
We can hear you. It's just there is some noise in the background.
Apologies. Yeah, I've had to move to a spot where I can get the Wi-Fi. And it is a bit of a background noise. So unfortunately, I can't really move anywhere else at the moment. But I'll try my best to keep plugging through. And if there's anything that isn't clear, please just put a message in the chat, and I'll try and type that back. If that's okay. So yeah, so this is currently a kennels and cattery business, which the owners got planning on some time ago for 5 new build bungalows. We've gone back in to slightly redesign them, not a huge amount of change, but we've added solar panels on, added single garages, and just redesigned the internal layout slightly just to improve the design. There is a note there about planning to use timber frame. We did look at various procurement methods of construction. We've actually reverted back to just traditional brick and block within this project. So yeah, and we're hoping to start on site in early January. So we're gearing up ready for that now.
Thank you. Okay.
So the project.
Sorry, carry on. Tell us about the project location.
Yeah, so the project's based in a place called Lambley, which is a lovely little village just on the north-east side of Nottingham, 7 miles outside the city centre. So it's a sort of 10-15 minute drive, depending on where you're located. The particular area is very sought after for people wanting to retire in, sort of over 50s. We looked up a few stats, so 67.5% are retired or over 50. You've got a really nice country park, Gedling Country Park, and fields surrounding the area, so it's got a lovely feel to it. And there's a lot of owners there who are either owned outright or have a very reduced mortgage. So generally, we're looking at cash buyers or downsizers for these bungalows. We've actually put 2 of the plots on the market over the weekend just to start getting initial names and numbers down. And we've got 6 people already registered to basically market their own houses to downsize, ready for completion. So that's really encouraging. With only less than a week of marketing, we've got quite a few registered people. So yeah, really pleased with that.
That's really good. And can you tell us a little bit about the actual project itself and what you're looking to raise, the projected ROI, and so forth?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're looking to give away for investors is a 30% return on the invested amounts. This is based over 16 months, so a 22.5% annualized return. We do anticipate to try and get in and out of the project within 12 months, but we've allowed 16 months just in case we have any overrun of sales, or if we need to look at refinancing the properties at the end to get investors paid back. So it just gives us a little bit more time. But in an ideal world, I'd like to be built and sold within 12 months. So that's the plan. We are doing a max raise of 750,000 in various tranches. We may not need that full amount, but that's the sort of max we're looking forward to go to. And anyone can invest from a minimum of £100 a share within this project. So.
And the project at the moment is the first tranche where you were looking for a minimum of 100,000 has reached approximately just over 250,000 anyway, hasn't it? Since it's open.
Yes.
So it might be that the first tranche will be closing shortly and the next tranche will open after that. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yes, yeah, that's right. Yes, I think this would be the enough for the first tranche, and then we'll open up the second tranche very shortly after.
Okay. Full details with regards to the deal itself are available in the IM. That's available for download from the platform anyway. I know you've provided some high-level financial summary information here. Do you just want to run through the numbers at a high level?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a projected GDV of 3.15 million. That's made up of the 5 bungalows being worth 550,000. One of them might actually be worth a little bit more because it's the end of the cul-de-sac. And then we've got the existing dwelling, which we put a value of 400 on. So there's an existing 3-bed house on the site, which we will rent or sell depending on timings. We've got our total build cost, including construction costs, at 1.3 million. Someone did ask about the price per square metre, and it's roughly £2,200 a square metre with all the costs and contingency included. I think it's around £1,800 a square metre for just raw build cost. So hopefully that helps answer that. We've got a total development cost of 2.6 million with a projected gross profit of around 550,000. So yeah, and I think just worth noting that we did a sensitivity analysis on this, and I think to break even we have to have the GDV drop 15% and the build costs go up 15% to break even. So we've got a lot of wiggle room on the scheme as well. So yeah.
Thank you. So in terms of how people can get involved, the raise is happening through the Simple platform, and the details are available on the investment page. For those of you who are new to crowdfunding, you will need to, sorry James, can I just ask you to mute for a second if that's okay? Thank you. So for those of you who are new to the platform, you will need to register first. Registering doesn't commit you to anything. It's just, it will allow you to have a look at all the information that's on the platform. It will also allow you to, or you need to go through the registration process in terms of becoming an approved investor in the first place. So you can go to the Simple crowdfunding platform. There are details at the end, and then we'll sort of run through exactly how that works. It's all managed online. It's not a challenge. Once you've logged in and you have access to the information, you can basically access the investment memorandums. Any questions that have been posted will be made available to everybody. So if one investor asks a question about something, we do make that information available to everybody. Any updates as the project progresses will also be made available to everyone. So everyone has access to the most recent information. Once you've had a look at the documentation, you can then decide whether or not you want to get involved in the project or not. I'm going to move into the Q&A section. James, I know there have been a couple of questions already. You've addressed the cost per square metre. I'm going to just stop sharing my screen and then we can go into some of the questions if that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so the first question is there just a general plan and layout for each of the bungalows? Do you have that available?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've got full floor plans for each of the bungalows. So more than happy to share those if they're not accessible at the minute.
Fabulous, that would be great. And then the next question was with regards to risk. So have you received have you evaluated the risks or the potential risks to this project, and have you mitigated some of those?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think within the equity offer document, we've actually got a risk register with various risks to be identified. I think some of them are fairly standardised risks with any development, such as selling the units, prices changing, build costs going up. I mean, so in regards to this particular scheme, like I said, we've already started marketing it because our end is to sell all the units. So the sooner we start getting that out there, the better. We've already appointed our agent and our marketing details, and they're very confident in the sales side, as am I. The option, if we ever get stuck with a couple of units, is we can rent them or use exit finance. So I think we worked out that to pay investors off, we could refinance 3 bungalows as long as we'd sold 2. So that's quite attractive from the scheme. Obviously, we'd love to sell them all, but it gives an option for us to pay investors back. Build costs, we've spent a lot of time over the past couple of months doing our pre-construction works to nail down build costs as far as possible, and we've got a contractor lined up and a JCT contract signed with them, so there shouldn't be any real changes on that side. So really all it takes now is to build them and get them sold at the end. So yeah, and it's not a particularly complicated site to build out, so we don't really see any major foreseen risks on it.
Thank you. The next question, and I will come to, I can see there's a couple of hands up, so I will come to those in a second. There was a question also about, have you considered other methods of construction, such as ICF?
Yeah, absolutely. So as part of our pre-construction work, we did exactly this. We looked at ICF, timber frame, and traditional build. We'd actually had a couple of quotes in from ICF companies as well as timber frame manufacturers. And whilst identifying our main contractor we wanted to use, we basically took a view that whilst ICF, I would love to use the technology, and same with timber frame, it didn't work so well on a single-story bungalow. And the cost was slightly dearer, but obviously the time saving. However, the contractor we're going with, because they are only single-story dwellings, we'll actually be able to do the brickwork just as quick because they can chuck gangs on it, and we're going to build them sort of stage by stage. So we actually chose traditional construction methods in the end, both from cost and timing, and also it's just everyone knows brick. It's easier to sell. There's nothing too quirky about it. Definitely no issues with mortgage lenders or anything. So that's the reason we stuck with traditional build.
Thank you. And did you consider chalet builds? And if so, why did you decide they weren't appropriate?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think they're referring to a chalet style bungalow with
yes.
a floor above in the first floor. There's a couple of reasons for this. One is we actually brought the site with planning, so we kind of intended to build what he got planning for. We did tweak it slightly, obviously, to make the design better. The issue with this, it's in a greenfield site. So it's a brownfield site, was in a green belt brownfield site. So it's all to do with the volume calculations. So we wouldn't have actually been able to go up any further. To add the garages onto the development, we had to lower the pitch of the roof because of the volume calculations. So we definitely wouldn't have been allowed anything in the first floor level. Speaking to the owners, they did originally go in for 2-story houses, but it was just a definite no from the planners. So in reality, there was no scope there for a chalet style bungalow.
Noted. Thank you. I think there may be a question. Paul, you have your hand up. I'm just going to see if I can unmute you. You should be unmuted. Do you have a question? No, I can't.
There's a couple of questions in the chat as well, Atushka.
That's fine. I was just going to go there next. So what are your plans if you're not able to raise enough funds?
So I was going off mute. So if we're not able to raise enough funds, well, we've already raised enough basically to get us over the line. The idea is that I prefer to have more money from the crowds with the equity rather than using other lending sources. But either way, with the 250 we've already raised, we will be able to complete on the purchase and move forward with it. So
it is going ahead in that regard.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And then there was a question about someone had previously invested in the project, and I will come to there were some questions with regards to how does this tie with Leo, and I'll address those in a second. So they previously invested in the project, but the previous iteration of the project failed. So the question is, so the funds were returned, but there was obviously no uplift or anything like that. What I think the question is more about.
Yeah, I think the answer to that, there's two parts to that answer. One is, I guess, about Leo, and the other one is it wasn't a failed iteration. It was just initially a first tranche we were doing with Leo at the time, and since we've moved to Simple to do a separate raise. So it's not failed by any means. We've always been committed to the scheme. I've got a lot of my own money tied in this already as well. And the plan was always to complete before Christmas or around the Christmas period and start the build in January. So, yeah.
Perfect. And then the second question is, they're not clear about the involvement of Simple and Leo. So let's explain that situation. So the reason that, or one of the reasons that James is raising through Simple is the raise was originally on the Leo platform, and I have a feeling David might be on the call now. So I will bring him on in a second if he is on the call. The raise was actually on the Leo platform, and Leo was going through a change at the time, and they're no longer regulated. So it's not a regulated platform. And in order to progress the raise, and because Leo were looking after their customers, they approached Simple and asked if we would basically help and manage a fundraise for these customers who'd already been partway through the process. And so, having spoken to David about it, we decided that we would have a look at these projects. We obviously had many conversations with James. We really liked the project, and so we decided to take that on. So that is the arrangement. I know Leo is doing something different, and hopefully David will be able to explain that in a second. But that is the relationship. Simple crowdfunding has, in its own right, been regulated in some shape or form for the last 10 years. We do projects all the time. The arrangement with Leo is so that we can help the customers who were raising continue that, continue the raise process through a crowd platform, and basically not have to go right back to the beginning and start absolutely everything again, because we know the Leo setup, and so we spent quite a lot of time working with David on that. Does that clarify, James? Is there anything else that you want to add to that?
No, I think that's a very good way of explaining it. It was essentially a transition, really, change in business model, and then move over to Simple for our fundraising for the FCA compliance side of things.
Okay, and there's a question from Andrew. Why are you using crowdfunding? He's new to this type of environment, so he's interested to understand your decision to go down this route.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is a very good point. I mean, there's various reasons. So any development project needs to have funding of some way, shape or form. This obviously being equity funding. Now, I've used private investors who have come on board with a couple of my schemes in the past. And I think with this particular one, I wanted to sort of try crowdfunding, and B was I had various investors who wanted to invest with me and my schemes, but due to FCA compliance, I can't have multiple investors just come to me and start investing with me. So that was part of the reason as well to, engage with Simple Crowdfund and putting it under an FCA compliance banner to, have a central point for people to come and invest with me and my schemes. And I really like the approach. It's flexible. It allows investors to literally invest on £100 a share. So that's really the reason why we've gone down this route.
Yeah, and the regulations are actually changing a little bit as well, aren't they? So raising funds privately is just becoming a bit more challenging. And with the added exposure as well, that crowd typically gives you, it's quite a nice environment, especially for developers who need to get their message out there about what they're doing. So that also helps as well, doesn't it? Okay.
Agreed.
The next question is, when is the start date for this project?
Yeah, so the start date is essentially going to be the first or second week of January. We are just leaving it a little bit flexible at the minute with the run up to Christmas. Partially, there's two real things. One is the vendor is moving out, and just allowing them to be a little bit flexible with us of when they actually do move out. And also our builder's got to confirm the start date. But essentially by the middle of January, we will have started on site. We've basically got everything ready to go, that literally the diggers will be rolling in that week.
Fantastic. And the next question is, have you met all the pre and post planning conditions?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this actually ties into a question that I think Keith asked earlier about the Section 73 variation. So just to explain what that is, it's basically with varying a condition of the planning to change the approved drawings, just to improve the design. So within that application, we managed to tie in our pre-commencement conditions. So we had to do a construction plan, materials of brick type and stuff. So that's all been due to be approved next Friday. We've had it all verbally approved by the planning department, and they've just got to issue their decision notice next Friday. So yeah, that will all be done, ready to start.
And we'll update that. We'll update the platform as soon as we receive that, so that there's a copy of it available for people to have a look at if they wish to do so. Thank you for that. The next one is about procurement. So what type of procurement route are you using for this project?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I've touched a little bit on that, but essentially we did go to a couple of builders for a not a formal tender, but more of an informal tender. And we've chosen a contractor we feel suits the size of the scheme. They also live in the village, so they're very local. They've got a lot of local trades, and they've got a lot of vested interest in it as well, because they know one of the owners behind the land. Funny enough, one of the guys' trades mums might want to buy one of the bungalows as well. So I felt like they've got a reputation within the area to build a good quality home. They're the right size builder, and they can deliver the scheme. So that's the kind of procurement method we went down, and we will be using a JCT design and build contract for it.
Perfect, thank you. There are two more questions here, and then I'll come back to Andre in a second, and also check with Paul again. Are there any issues with utilities and delays with suppliers or anything like that you anticipate?
Delays or issues with utilities. There's always an issue with utilities. They're never simple. I think the best answer I can give to that is that we already engaged utilities about a month ago, just preempting any issues, because I'm fully aware that if you don't get utilities sorted ASAP, they can delay the project. So at this moment in time, I can't say they're going to delay the project whatsoever, because they're kind of ready to start and be issued in January. We've got to get water to the site, drainage and electrics, which we've engaged with all three parties. I think the most complicated one is the water. We've got to have a pump system installed, so we're just still sorting some final things out on that. But in reality, it's just another hurdle within development to get those nailed down. But yeah, be assured we've already been engaging them, ready to get the ground, get the ball rolling and get things started as soon as possible.
Thank you. And are there any party wall awards required? And if
Quite
so, are
simply,
they
no,
in place? No. Perfect.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a question about the ISA investment option, and I'll address that if that's okay. ISA is not available for equity fundraisers, which this is. ISA investments are only available for debt, so bonds or peer-to-peer loans. So in this case, that tax-exempt wrapper is not available. However, the SAS investment route is available. So if people are looking for tax-free or tax-exempt options, then SAS is the one for this project. Okay, I'm just going to see if I can unmute Andre. And Paul, I'm going to come back to you as well. So I don't know if you have any questions. If you do, please let me know. And actually, it's not Andre. I can see the whole name now, and it's Andrew. Apologies for that, Andrew. Andrew, you should be unmuted. So if you've got a question, please let me know.
Yeah, I just want to ask about the finance structure, because you said when you were funding it through Leo, there was quite a complicated cap and collar system. So if the project makes more or less money than anticipated, could you explain the way that works? Because that was not conventional.
Yeah, absolutely, Andrew. So it's fairly straightforward in that the profit is standard at 30%. There is no downside to it. There's only an upside. So if the profit goes above the projected 542,000, anything 10% of that uplift in profit will be distributed to the crowd investors. That's the sort of upside to it.
Andrew, does that answer your question?
Yeah, but I'm more worried about the downside, to be honest.
There isn't any downside on it. It's only an upside. So the 30% is fixed as a priority share, and then if it goes over the projected profit, there's an additional 10% of that raise over the projected profit distributed to crowd. So there's no negative to that.
No, I understand that, but what I'm saying is if the project doesn't perform, you can't pay money you don't have. So what I'm trying to understand is how the breakdown occurs if the project fails to sell or sells under projected or whatever.
And maybe I can answer that one. Leslie, why don't you start,
okay.
and then I'll come on.
So the way it's being structured is you will have priority shares. So I appreciate it. If the project makes no money, then that's the sort of risk of the investment. But the project has to, let's just say it makes £400,000, there is still enough profit in there to pay on a priority share to the investors. So the investors will get paid back with a return before I will receive any profit or monies, essentially. So hopefully that answers the question. So it's not split evenly. It's investors will get paid before I get paid anything.
Andrew, so it's on a waterfall, and full details are in the investment memorandum, and that explains how payments will be made back once the project is completed. Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to go back to the chat. I think there might have been.
There's one question, well, a couple of questions that I think we didn't answer on behalf of Keith. Was just about the monitoring of the project, updates frequency.
Ah, okay. Apologies. I missed that one. So yes, if you can answer it, that would be great.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm happy to do a monthly update to all investors. I mean, we've not really spoken about it, but I'm more than happy to hold site visit days if anyone wants to come and see the site and see what we're doing. But yeah, I think a monthly update is kind of suitable to give an update to everyone.
Okay. One of his questions was also, what's plan C if the units don't sell?
We've skipped plan B, but plan C is to, I think I mentioned, so I kind of worked this out, that if we came to the scenario in 12 months time, we're still left with a bungalow or two and we haven't quite sold them, I will look to refinance them and let them out, or I can exit development finance to clear the original debt development lender and pay the investors back out, assuming everything goes as planned, which it should do. There's enough in there to pay investors' profit back out.
And I know you've sort of explained that the question was, do you need the funds to complete on the purchase? But I know we've addressed that because we're already at 250 plus on your project.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, that's fine. So just scrolling back down. The next question was, who's the first charge lender for this project?
So the first charge lender is a company called Stamford Finance.
And has the GDV of the scheme been reviewed and confirmed by a RICS valuation?
Yes, it has. Well, be honest, we only got that in confirmed earlier in the week. It is 2% different from what we projected, so it's been dropped by 50,000. Although I still slightly disagree with it. They've just put a little bit of it on our bungalows. However, we're already marketing them higher than what they've come back at, and we've already had a lot of registered interest. So I strongly believe we will sell them for what we plan to sell them for. But yeah, a 2% change in a valuation report in this market, I'm more than happy with, to be honest. I've seen 5 to 10% changes. So I think 2% I can certainly live with.
Thank you. I'm just going to see, Brenda, it should be David on the call. David, are you on the call now? No. So we can't get David to, I was really hoping that he would be able to join the call. Maybe we can sort of explain that David is actually helping James, you and your team, isn't he, through the fundraise process. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think it's ultimately with David. We originally set up working with him on the scheme, so he was quite familiar with it, and obviously his expertise in the crowdfunding side of things was good to bring him along, just to help us with speaking to investors and presenting it in the right way. And yeah, that's his involvement really. So he's been a useful part of the team.
Yeah, I know he's on the call. I just think there's an issue with regards to microphones and so forth. So we can't bring him on for now. That's all of the questions that.
New question.
Sorry?
New questions come in.
Okay. Sorry, I can't see it.
Will we receive a copy of the RICS valuation report?
Yes, we will. So the RICS valuation, will we receive a copy of it? James, you're happy for us to send it, for us to receive it? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
And then in terms of whether it will be available to everybody, we'll just need to check the details of that. If we're not able to release it to everybody, then we will put an update on just to say that the platform has seen it and we can confirm the numbers or something. Yeah.
Or I can take a snippet of a headline of the main
Perfect.
headline figures.
Yeah, that will be great. And there's another question. Can you briefly explain how the return will be calculated based on, say, 10K equity investment? So, James, do you want to answer that whilst I see if I can get David on the call?
Yeah, so quite simply, on a £10,000 investment, you will receive 30% return on that money. So you'll receive £13,000 back within 16 months. So if we finish in 12 months, like we hopefully anticipate, you will still receive a 30% return. So your annualized return will be increased. We've just allowed a little bit longer, just in case there's a longer sales period or anything else, just as a contingency. So yeah, it's a fixed 30% return. And if, as I mentioned before, if our profit goes above projected, there is an additional 10% of that profit being distributed to the crowd. So it could increase from 30%.
Just going to try one more time and see if we can get David on the call. Whilst we're doing that, are there any other questions that anyone's got about this project? Like I said, full details are on platform, and the platform address is just simplecrowdfunding.co.uk. All the information about the project is available on platform. It is live and it is open to funding now. If you've got any further questions at all, once you've had a look at the information, please reach out through the messaging system or through the forum for the project. If Simple can address the questions, we will do so straight away. Otherwise, we'll go back to James and get James to provide a response. And as I said at the beginning, everything that is presented or all questions asked will then be made available to everybody. We'll also see if we can provide a write-up of the questions that have been raised today, so that all of that information is also available on platform. Just to confirm, we will be closing tranche 1 shortly. There will be another tranche opening after that. We're just going to play it a little bit by ear based upon James's timeframes. So, but to confirm, the project is going ahead and we are expecting to continue raising for it. James, is there anything else that you wish to add?
No, I think that's everything from my side. I mean, apart from just thanking everyone for taking their time out to come today, and hopefully I look forward to working with you, and enjoy to get on due to start the scheme really. Exciting.
Likewise. Thank you so much everyone for attending. We are very sorry about the technical challenges we've had today. And I'm really sorry that we haven't been able to get David on the call, because I know that he's keen to sort of explain some of the information as well. So thank you for your time. And if you have any, one more question. Steve, will tranche 2 be similar returns and time? Steve, it's exactly the same. The information is exactly the same. The returns are exactly the same. Nothing changes. We're just, if you imagine it to be one raise, but we're just splitting it out because not all of the funds are going to be required in one go, but this will allow for better management of the project and the funds that are required for it. So everything else stays the same. Just going to double check. Perfect. That's great. Okay, thank you very much, everybody, and have a wonderful rest of day and weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.